Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino Guido Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we are answering a very important question. Did Lightning ever leave? And we're going to answer that question by talking about Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy XIII tale, the third one. And joining me to discuss this very important, monumentous game that everyone enjoys so much, as always, Chris ZombiePie Redacted. Hello, ZP.
Hey, Gino, you're a consummate businessman, so I feel like I need to ask you a question. So
Okay.
I followed someone on Twitter that gave me words of encouragement from my adventure game blogs and now this Digimon Survive blog. So I followed them. And when I followed them, the first thing that they seemingly retweeted and put into my Twitter timeline, you're a Twitter user, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, those are words I've heard.
It was a fan art image of Bowser going to town on Princess Peach with Mario in the background crying, and I don't know if I should continue following this person. They seem like a nice person, but I have a limit. And I think that's the limit.
You found your limit? Good for you. You know, it's important to know your limits.
I mean, seeing a turtle man eat out Princess Peach is just, that's the limit. That's the limit.
Well, glad that this episode is rated M for mature. The other person who's joining us on this unenviable of tasks, Jeff Rude. Hello, Jeff.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just off of a big recording batch from a website called Hardcore Gaming 101 that went for several hours last night. So he sounds a little ragged right now, but here I am.
Well, at least you're talking about a game you love, Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII, the third one.
Boy. Yeah, a game just unimpeachable.
Unimpeachable, like in the sense that modern-day presidents are unimpeachable because it's impossible to get 60 people in the Senate to agree on anything?
You've truly hit the nail on the head, my friend.
Technically unimpeachable.
Because there's not the political willpower to do anything about 13.2. It just allowed 13.3 to come into the world, basically.
Exactly. You get it. So before we talk about Lightning Returns, let's do the plugs, and then we can I assume ZP is going to ruin this show with some sort of nonsense. So starting off, a reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That is our email address. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Thank you to everyone who has been supporting. You can, submit games for the Off the Deep Men crew to cover. You can, I think if we get up to 30 patrons, if we get 10 more patrons, what was going to happen? Jeff, you were going to do something in Off the Deep End, right?
Well, Gino, boy. Okay, we're going to... Well, Gino, there's that nice voice. We're going to cover Ultima 9, which I'm positive has a subtitle because all those games did, I'm pretty sure. It's a poor game. I would describe it as like the Death
Ultima
Road.
9 Ascension.
Ultima 9 Ascension, yes. Sort of the death rattle of Origin. In some sense, kind of the death rattle of CRPGs. For a time, anyway, at least at that scale. So it's a weird, interesting, tragic, broken game. And boy, I can't wait to really dig into it. And you can compel us to do that, as mentioned, patreon.com/deeplisten.
We're excited to do this, but you have to force us to do it. You got to make us put the peanut butter in the chocolate to make the buttercup. That's
Yes.
a metaphor, right?
Yes. Technically,
The jelly needs to be in the sandwich to make peanut butter and jelly, but we put the peanut butter you got to give that raspberry jam to us.
And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this out there for the regular Deep Listens crew. We will play Sonic the Hedgehog if we can get 10 more. If we can
2006?
Oh yeah, 2006.
Okay.
That one.
Yeah. It's
We'll do
available
it.
for all of $5 right now if you have access to the old 360 marketplace online.
It's also like $10 if you buy the physical disc for the PlayStation 3 or the 360.
Yeah,
So,
but $5 to have a permanent stain on your Xbox transaction account, it's like
that's fair.
pretty cheap cost for a soul.
I don't want a server to know I've purchased this game.
It's between me and my Lord, my personal savior.
I want to buy Sonic the Hedgehog with cash, is what I'm saying.
I
all right,
want no
so-
government involved.
ZP, are you
Yeah.
going to do a thing to us?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a thing. It's the food review, but unfortunately, let's do a little ding ding ring ring. It's dead. I was supposed to review
little
the
ring-a-ding
McPlant,
ding?
but McDonald's canceled it before I could buy it and eat it on live on stream. Apparently, it was bad. And then the second thing that I ended up buying, Braden had to convince me not to do this because he thought that I would get sick if I actually ate this. But I bought 2 bottles of Soylent.
Oh,
And
God.
he said, please check the date on that because if it's made on a certain date, it will actually give you diarrhea and horrible stomach problems. And I read into it, and yeah, that's totally what happens. But I wanted to do something that would at least warm the dark abyss that is Gino's heart because he was really excited if I ate the McPlant. So I've done and eaten vegetable people friendly foods. So I bought Beyond Meat jerky, plant-based, slow-roasted, and kettle-cooked artificial imitation jerky.
Oh,
this
that
is
stuff's
Beyond
good.
Meat. So this is water, mung bean protein, brown sugar, pea protein, natural flavors, gluten-free oat bran. Gluten-free is such a load of horse shit. Salt, exfoliator, pressed canola oil, onion powder, vegetable juice, color, vinegar, lemon juice concentrate, pomegranate concentrate, spice, garlic powder, citric acid, and sunflower lectin. Peas are legumes. People with severe allergies to legumes like peanuts should be cautious when introducing pea protein into their diet.
Question.
I don't.
What
What?
is the flavor that this is going for?
This is the original.
Okay. Original barbecue kind of jerky flavor. Got it.
Okay, let's open this up. Let's smell it. See if it's got a pleasant
First,
smell.
before you smell it, can you give us your, history with jerky? Are you a jerky eater? Are you a jerky
I
boy?
am 100% a jerky eater. I just finished a bag of Korean-style pork jerky. It was very good. I like turkey jerky. I like meat jerky. I like something that you can do if you're really in a dire situation. You can take strips of beef jerky, cut them up, boil them in water, then add in mashed potatoes, and now you have meat and mashed potatoes, and the beef jerky gets reconstituted. Put some cheese on that. That's a good meal. All right.
You had any salmon candy?
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Jerky salmon is good. I've had deer. I've had. I even had crocodile once. That was
Okay.
maybe the only jerky I was not a fan of. But
So
okay,
the
let's give
takeaway
this-
is you're a jerky boy, you're a jerky expert. Your jerky word is jerky law.
So I would say that this is a very strong barbecue sauce flavor.
Yeah.
Very
If
strong.
I'm gonna take a guess. Some of that's to cover up for me. I don't mind these sort of substitute products that much.
Yes,
to be perfectly honest,
but,
but the pea protein ones have a very specific flavor to them that I don't love.
Yeah, I
So-
don't like the texture of pea protein. I also think that it has a weird aftertaste.
Yes.
So I now have a piece. Was that the jerky or was that something else? I'll never say. It's in strips, so I can only imagine that they reconstituted it, pressed it into something, and then cut it up. It's got flexibility, so it's not hard.
That's good.
All right. Let's take a bite out of this. Gino, have you had this?
I don't know that I've had that specific type of jerky. I have definitely had vegetarian jerkies, though. from Whole Foods. How's the mouth feel?
Not great. It's like not falling apart.
Is it chewy?
Okay, no, it's very chewy.
Good.
Very fibrous.
That's what I'm looking for in my jerky. Fibers.
Oh. I mean, the flavor is okay. Like, it doesn't have that pea protein like we were talking about. That pea protein, weird, like, tannic bite.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is a little on the fishy side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that checks out from the last time I had a vegan jerky.
It, like, reminds me of, I'm Japanese. It reminds me of the dried fish, the little tiny dried fish that you eat, like, as an appetizer in Japanese food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the shrimp, the dried shrimp, just pop it in your mouth.
So what do we think? What's the verdict?
Well, on the spicier side, it's got a very good pepper game. It's fine. I don't like the texture. It's like weirdly chewy, but it doesn't continue to press and spring back. It's like just a solid mass of.
It is wadding up in your teeth.
Yeah, it's wadding up in my tooth. Very stringy. But I do think that they've fixed the flavor issues that I've had with previous pea protein meat substitutes. I am still not convinced. Meat is good. It's very delicious. You should go out and just slaughter your own meat once or twice in your life. Gut of fish, good shit. See how it's made. See how the sausage is made by making a sausage. That's okay. If you're like a plant person like Gino, I could see you enjoying this. I don't think this is going to convince anyone like me or Jeff to like, oh my god, I'm going to replace it. In terms of the flavoring, I think it was a little on the smokier side than I would like in a jerky. And it's like permeating or staying on my tongue in a way that normal jerky would not. Because again, I think what Jeff said, where they have to kind of like pulverize the pea protein part of the flavor profile with just sauce upon sauce upon sauce. I give this a solid 3.5. This is passable. It's not going to hurt your stomach. It's not going to be painful. It's fine.
Verdict is jerky is okay. 3 out of 5.
Meat jerky is like a 4.5. Like, good meat jerky is fucking great.
Agreed. And as someone who loved jerky before I became vegetarian, I am very happy to have substitutes that are adequate, because for a while I had nothing.
What was it? I went to a vegan restaurant when I went on a date, and they had eggplant jerky where they like coated it in some sort of glaze and like roasted it. I thought that was better.
That's interesting. I've had mushroom jerky.
No, it was eggplant. Also... It was eggplant bacon. So it was like their pseudo vegetarian vegetable people bacon. Like, don't call it bacon, but it was good.
The worst euphemistic food I've had is cauliflower steak, which is not bad.
I've seen this,
but it's just a big hunk of cauliflower, and at that point,
I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't like cauliflower crust pizza. I just don't.
That's fine. It's not outstanding by any stretch. All right, so without further ado, let's discuss Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy XIII. When last we spoke, we had all defeated Noel Kreis, that piece of shit, from Final Fantasy XIII 2. Now we have each gone off in our own directions to try and save the souls of the other characters whose names you remember from the previous Final Fantasy XIII games. So why don't we start out by saying which souls we have attempted to save, because we each said we will try to save 2 souls. So, Jeff, whose soul did you save?
I saved Snow. It has a last name, but that great name.
Villiers?
Villiers. Soul Villiers. And then just about saved, I guess, spoilers for a game we're going to talk about. Your boy Caius shows up again. He's here. And then for reasons we'll talk about, didn't quite finish that. Yeah, so. And then, along the way, plenty of little, let's call them ancillary civilian characters' souls also got turned into a currency that I put into a tree in a spaceship.
Yep.
So, good game.
CP, what about you?
I did everything except get to the end of the game. I did. So I beat Grendel, although my version of Grendel I did after day 7, so that's Parandus. I did Knoll level 2. Or Knoll plus. I did Snow plus, and I beat Caius. I've done everything in the game other than get to the end. Oh shit! I shouldn't have said that. I apologize.
I mean, but we're here talking about the game.
We'll eventually beat that as well. Okay, and I saved Noel's soul, and I got to Caius but could not beat him as of yet, and I am at least probably a third of the way or half the way through Fangs.
Oh, wait, no, a third? Yes, I would agree with that.
Through Fangs.
Sorry.
I have Fang. She's joined me, and I have started going through a big dungeon trying to get something for Vanille. So that's where I'm at. So the game has opened up. We have gotten past the initial zone, which is kind of a city.
That's actually, so someone corrected me. You can actually, once you're introduced there and do the first categories, you can actually just immediately go to the other locations, which the game does encourage you to do. You are not required to just mainline Knoll as we did for the first episode. So you can just go up to the train and just check out the Wildlands, check out Yusnan, check out the Dead Dunes. And in fact, in a lot of ways, the game passive-aggressively wants you to do that, even though it does not clearly or explicitly communicate, yo, the bosses are hard, go explore and do other stuff elsewhere before doing them.
Yeah, and as we said in the previous episode, the way that you level up in this game is not via combat. You complete quests, and then those quests cause your character's base stats to go up. So combat it gives you money, sometimes it gives you items, and then sometimes it also gives you EP, which charges up your EP abilities, which are special god powers that Lightning has. And those EP abilities tend to be things that help you manipulate time in some way, help you save time. Like you can pause the game's clock because there's a running clock. You can teleport around to places you've already been, which saves you time because you don't have to go take a train, run to a train station. You could heal yourself so you don't have to find a place to heal, those sorts of things. So combat is actively... I mean, it's not bad in this game necessarily, but it's not as rewarding as it is in other RPGs for certain.
Yeah, it's weird because there's, a couple of side questy things that are like the nature of the side quest in this game is generally like a person either wants you to go visit them several times over several days. They're looking for a specific thing, or there's this subcategory of like more passive ones that are just, hey, over time collect like a bunch of, Whoosy, Whatsits, and Thingamagummies and whatever. And one of those is basically fight 2 of the lowest tier trash mobs in this game, like dozens and dozens and dozens of times. So those are kind of the only ones I've really sought out as fighting it's like gremlins.
Now, we also did not talk about this, but are you both aware of how the ecosystem works in terms of how random encounters can become extinct?
No. What?
Okay, so every single enemy in the game, except for a few, only has a finite number of those enemy encounters possible in any given playthrough. If, for example, you kill 200 goblins, they will become extinct and they will be replaced by an ultimate version of that called a Goblin Omega. Then after you kill the Goblin Omega, they're gone forever. So there's actually a hard cap in terms of the number of combat. So I've reached the point in the game where I've basically beat all of the bosses. There are specific environments where there are no random encounters because I've killed them all. And I'm in a bit of a bind because I've used my resources inefficiently, and so that's kind of how you get stuff. So now certain areas only have like the Earthshaker or the Chocobo Eater. But there's still plenty in this is not like, oh my god, I'm in a fail state. No, I've just reached the end game. But basically, every random encounter has a finite number of occurrences. Once you reach the cap on that, you will no longer see that enemy. So just be a little careful on that. But I think it's a cool idea. So there are actually bosses, like what it kind of reminded me of was the Nintendo Wii version of Punch-Out, where Glass Joe, you beat him up and then he comes back and he's got like something protecting his belly. So now you have to learn a new kind of way to beat him up. So it's interesting. I'm going to say this a lot. I'm just going to make this clear. I think that there are interesting ideas that they should revisit, but they're not necessarily implemented really well. Or they're just like an inch or centimeter away from being good. But I thought that mechanic was clever.
Yeah, that sounds like that's a lot of this game. Like, clever idea implemented imperfectly.
And I don't know if we did it on the first podcast, but it sounds like the team Tri-Ace here did not have a lot of time to make this game.
Correct.
It sounds like they had about a year. And under the context of they belted this game out in a year, it's pretty good for a game that did not get a lot of money, did not get a lot of marketing power. I mean, when you compare like how hard Square Enix hit us over the head with like 13, and by the time we get to Lightning Returns, it's like, yeah, I mean, we did something with Louis Vuitton. Cool. Play our game, I guess.
Or don't.
This game's it's stitched together. You can see the seams.
Yes, you can definitely see the seams in this game. So I guess since we all did the snow section, what did we think of the storyline here? Because it's like every character, all the bosses you're trying to save have these storylines. They usually take multiple phases to get to the boss fight where you can save their soul. Usually that character is like somewhere in the distance, and Lightning has to get to them, and they do not want to see Lightning for whatever reason. Yeah. So you only get like a handful of moments with the character themselves. It's a lot of Hope talking to you in an earpiece, telling you need to get MacGuffin A so that you can get to character B and save their soul. So what did you think of Snow's plotline? So you need to get into his castle. To get into the castle, the door's locked.
I thought that Snow's level and his entire sequence is maybe the best part of the game. I thought that it's a kind of sandbox in that every level in Final Fantasy Lightning Returns is a sandbox, but it's small enough to where it doesn't feel super overwhelming and it's actually easier to explore the world. It's goofy in a way that I think it actually plays on the lighthearted nature of what you're doing in this game a little bit better. And at the end of the day, I think that Snow, the earnest dumbass that he is, this is maybe the best the game has ever tried to frame his relationship with Sarah and sell it to you as like a real believable relationship. Him basically saying like, yeah, we fucking failed. I'm going to be in my pleasure dungeon, just fucking about everything. Just everybody party time, Mardi Gras, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, depressed Snow. I mean, it's kind of interesting because, like you said, I guess first from a game development, like level design perspective, Snow's level Yuznan is denser than most of the other levels. It's smaller than, for example, the Knoll level or the Dead Dunes is just so frickin' spread out. Same thing with
but at least at least the Dead Dunes has a fast travel system.
Dead Dunes has a fast travel system. Wildlands has a chocobo.
I thought that the Wildlands, in terms of all of the levels, was my least favorite to explore the world because even with that chocobo, it was really just time consuming. But at least the Dead Dunes has a fast travel system. At least Yusnan is got this kind of concentrated nature. Luxuriant actually was the one that I just, oh God, I have to remember where the plaza is and I got to walk all the way.
Yeah, like it's like the way they're laid out in a sense. Like they're Yuznan is certainly kind of a weird S-shaped corridor, I guess, kind of. But Yuznan's a big loop.
Yeah,
it's like the least efficient way to lay out a city because you've got to like go around the entire perimeter of the thing to like get anywhere meaningful.
And it's segmented, right? And here's the weird thing in terms of how the story is structured. Every single time you complete a mission in the mainline story, you unlock a new section or segment of Yusnan, and there's a pace to it that I feel like is not necessarily super present in the rest of the other locations. Because like when you're in Luxurian, it's like, okay, go to this corner, that corner, this is over here, this is over there. And the same thing with the Wildlands and the Dead Dunes, where it's like, I gotta walk all the way over there, where it's like forward. You're moving forward in Yusnan, and I like that part. The weird thing about Yusnan is it's like, oh, I guess, and this is even another case with the Dead Dunes, where it's like, I guess I finished the mission. That was the first part. Okay, sure, I guess. What? Cool. And I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun. I thought this
also,
was fun.
Like Yusnan has more people acting kind of normal. Like Luxurian is a lot of zealots and then heretics talking religious end times stuff.
Yeah.
Yusnan is mostly people living normal lives. Like, it's the pleasure district, so it's people going to clubs, listening to music, going to the blood sport coliseum. Like, it somewhat approximates human beings behaving normally. Dead Dunes is almost completely empty. Wildlands similarly so. They have like one or two locations with people, and then they're just big spread out dungeons for the most part. So Yusnan felt the most like, I don't know, a RPG from, any other RPG you've played before you played one of the 13 games, which are famously barren games. So, like, Yusnan felt the most alive, and that added a lot to the experience. You would run into missions organically because missions are given by other characters for the most part. You solved a lot of missions just by virtue of running around because a lot of the missions in Yusnan are fetch questy. Go to this person, get a thing, deliver it to the original person, because there are multiple characters. Whereas in a lot of other locations, it's much more fetch quests, but spread out. Go to 5 locations across this giant map, collect items, or go find a thing to kill, then come back. And I think the dialogue-driven quests I found much more endearing than the go kill 5 goblins.
And
quests.
I'm glad you said it, because I feel like this is the most positive we will be universally across all 3 of us in terms of a level or a part of this game is, God damn, this game is earnest. It really, really is an earnest video game. Does it pull all of its pieces together in a perfect package? Is it always a fun time? But man, when you talk to that restaurateur and he's like struggling, and you find out there's a reviewer who keeps writing negative reviews for his restaurant, it has, in a lot of ways, I've been thinking a lot about Eternal Sonata while I played Lightning Returns, because boy howdy, when this game really wants to tell you a story, the voice acting in this game is questionable at best.
At best.
God damn it. God damn it. Is the voice acting just mwah.
They try. They're bad, but they try.
They tried. And like when we get to Snow, like Troy Baker is a goddamn professional. They gave him some of the dumbest, hokiest lines, but he is selling his ass off. There's another side quest in Luxurian where you're trying to find a guy's dead wife.
Yep.
And when you break the news to him that, oh, your wife's dead, he's like overcome with grief, but it is the single worst line read I think I have ever seen in a Final Fantasy game ever. It's like, no, my wife cannot be dead. I don't believe you. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, there's a B-movie quality to this, but there's just an earnestness. This game really tries hard.
Another thing that I love about this game is that they have the character models from 13, 13.2. Maybe they got to make some new ones, but not very many. But they built the, what is the system? The accessory system?
Which is completely ancillary. It doesn't actually add anything to your attributes, but I know where you're going with this. Yes,
you can dress Lightning up, and you can put outfits on her, hats, sunglasses, all that sort of stuff. So since they built the accessory system, they used them on the NPCs to make the NPCs have a little bit of variety to them, because otherwise it'd be the same guy 20 times.
God.
So you just find some people who are just like,
There are
oh,
these Unreal Engine auto-created NPCs, and they have, like, accessories. There was that mission where you're trying to find the kid who's a pickpocket, right? And there's
Yes.
the guy who's the friend of his father, and he's wearing a big, doofy top hat,
yes,
and it doesn't even fit his head. You can see,
No.
like, it's floating
yes,
above, or, like, there's parts of his hair that are also clipping through the hat,
uh-huh.
and it's just...
It's the best.
It's the best. Like, the parts of this game that are a janky mess, I honestly think that if this game was a more polished product, I would enjoy it less because it makes me laugh seeing this.
I saw so you're supposed to tell, like, there's a mission in the Wildlands where a girl asks you to find her father.
Oh, and
he's gone to find
the
fertilizer.
two guys with the pink and orange glasses.
Yeah, you find this man who tells you that her father died trying to get fertilizer. He was trying to get poop in the forests, and he has died. And this person with pink glasses, and he's otherwise dressed like a hunter, but he's got pink specs, and he's like, nah, this person died. You need to tell the kid.
I will also say you should further that story arc, because boy howdy does it come together in a really amazing way. But
Yeah, so like
I've
that's the sort
had
of stuff.
the best moment-to-moment joy playing this game, doing these dumb fucking side quests.
And I
Just
mean,
because they're very low stakes, they add to your overall stats, so you actually feel like you need to do them. And the shoddy production values and weird rough edges, I feel like were very, very... They feel fuzzy, right? They give you that weird fuzzy mittens feeling. Seeing this game try.
yeah, try and fail just constantly.
What about you, Jeff? Were there any? Well, we have to talk about that restaurant side quest because Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, that was maybe the example of it. Like, because there's, it's not maybe the most line reads and voice acting, but it as a nexus, as a way you could really distill this game's entire energy and like why it's just a bit like you see a successful game in there. Yeah, it's a very hokey story of like, oh my god, it turns out that this restaurant critic man was actually the son of this restaurateur, but he's hiding his identity. And oh, it'd just be great if we could work together, and it forces you to go talk to every other restaurant in town. And like, it has utility, and it also has plot value, and Lightning's interactions in that are like kind of, I don't know, funny and charming. Like, her character sort of shines in it as well.
Do you also remember the name of the restaurateur who's going to help save this struggling restaurant?
CDs?
No, well, it's CD's restaurant, but the restaurateur who helps rescue restaurants is
Sounds like
Gordon
Grumpy
Gourmet.
Gordon Gourmet.
A Gordon Ramsay knockoff.
I wonder how the original Japanese for that was, but man,
Yeah.
I'd like to think that even then it was a Gordon Ramsay
'Cause
reference.
it's not like they lean into a Gordon Ramsay. Like, it's not
No.
like the character himself is just like, what? Like, slaps
it's
two
dog
pieces
shit. I
of
hate
bread.
it. Ugh.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, a
he's
stupid sandwich. Yeah. Like, none of
Yeah,
that.
he doesn't have a British accent. He's not mean. He is in fact the like long lost son of CDs. And he comes up with a
love
recipe
each other,
to save them.
and then and then it ends with them professing their love and appreciation for each other. Like, and the game seems to always make a case of wanting to show like relationships and love and compassion between its NPCs, even if they look completely and totally unconvincing as like believable people. But it's always trying to like undercut the sometimes grave tone of the actual story with just these weird moments of sentimentality. And you could say that they don't work in execution, but they kind of do, guys. They kind of do.
They kind of do, because at the end of the day, this game is not taking itself very seriously. It's taken these stakes where everyone's been trapped in their body for 500 years and no new human beings have been born. So everything is just, the weight of the world is on everyone's shoulders all the time. And so it's just melodrama upon melodrama upon melodrama. Like that mission you mentioned earlier, ZP, about the kid who pickpockets you and you need to help convince him not to pickpocket. When you try to set him straight, he's like, I've been a 7-year-old boy for 500 years. Why would I? Life isn't worth living. Nothing's worth living. Nothing's worth doing. And you have to convince him that life's worth living because he's been trapped as a prepubescent boy for millennia. From centuries. Yeah. Like, that is funny. And then this man in his top hat is telling you, yes, thank you for making this boy not be a hoodlum. As though
and
this
then you're like, why didn't
500-year-old...
you just talk? This is where I think that Lightning as a character is actually good in this game. Like, I'm so sick of everyone's bullshit and, like, calling people out and just pointing out their, like, logical inconsistency. During that dialogue sequence, she's like, why didn't you just talk to him? You've had 500 years to talk to him to prevent him from going down this path. And he's like, He's like, I think that the voice actor for Lightning had some fun, and it shows, and I think it's a net positive. I think there are only 2 other side quests. I won't spoil them, but there's one in the Dead Dunes involving Bhakti the robot.
Sure, I just want to throw something out there. You shouldn't call anyone a juvenile delinquent when they're 500 years old. I think you probably at that point should just cut the guy some slack. That is all. Go ahead, CP. Tell me about Bhakti.
Oh no, you guys need to experience this. I'm not spoiling this. I'm just saying.
I've
when
given
you encounter
Bhakti 1 oil. I need to get him 2 more oils.
You need to see the end of that one. That one's
I need to lube up Bhakti.
Yes. And
Okay.
I would say the payoff, we'll talk about Caius, but the payoff at the end when there's something you need to discover about that white chocobo, but
Sure.
Holy shit. Like, this game is weird. I think we've talked about this, but this game is really weird.
It is.
Yes.
So going back to Yuznan, so for Snow, you have to sneak in. First, you get a sketchy guy wearing like a one-man band outfit who tries to sell you a ticket to get into the play that goes on every night that they've been performing for, I guess, 500 years about a savior who's going to come save the world. Lightning can't get in the front door, so it's going to be FF9 style. You're going to sneak around the back and then get a view from kind of above on the retaining wall. You go that way. Eventually, what's her name? The little jerk. Lumina. Lumina shows up. She attacks you with some sort of gargoyle beast. You beat it, but now you can't sneak in. You can't get on the top of the wall. You kind of tunnel underneath the outer retaining wall, and you find a code on a skeleton. You find a key card on a skeleton that lets you into the main access. It lets you into the main area where the play is going to be performed. Then you have to convince the showrunner to use... So, at first you think you're just going to walk in, but you can't because security is too high. So you need to convince the showrunner to use more fireworks in his show so it will detonate his stage and collapse the stage onto the retaining wall of Snow's house, and you're going to jump off and into Snow's mansion by burning down the stage using extra fireworks, which leads to a mission to get fireworks. Did I miss anything on that plot beat? ZP, how do you get some fireworks for cheap from some chocobo ladies?
So you tell them meow meow choco chow. There are other ways for you to do it. There are even temporary side quests. You can even go to you're recommended to check out the places where they're shooting fireworks actually in game and into the sky. But what you want to do is you want to find Chocolina and have Lightning say the words meow meow choco chow, and she'll give you fireworks.
Yeah, there are 3 Chocolina lookalikes who will give you fireworks. And if you try to ask them for fireworks after they've given you fireworks one time, Lightning will walk up and just go like, meow, 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 choco chow. And they'll be like, no, what was that? Meow, meow, choco chow. Oh, we don't... I already gave you fireworks, honey. Sorry, we can't give you a second round. Which is great. Lightning just completely aloof, having to say this ridiculous thing. So yeah, you get fireworks. You burn down. Oh, after you get the fireworks, you need to get a dress because Lightning is going to star in the play. She has to be the person who flies up the set. So you have to go to what is the name of the Coliseum? The Blooded Dome?
Augers? Oh, no, wait. It's
the Slaughterhouse.
The Slaughterhouse, right.
Right? Or Slaughter Quarter or something like that. Pretty sure it's Slaughterhouse.
It's the Slaughterhouse. You have to go to the Slaughterhouse because Yuznan is basically the Golden Saucer, but a level, but like a city.
Yeah.
So you go to the Slaughterhouse. What was that?
No minigames, though. Thank God.
That's true. So you go to the Slaughterhouse, you win a couple rounds, you get a dress that is just completely impractical. You have to wear it so that you can perform in the play. What did you think of the play, Jeff?
I mean, it's not much of a play, is it? It's like a monologue. More like it's a one-woman show.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of oversold. It felt like sort of the game in a vacuum, I guess, in terms of like budget and, broad metaphor of like what Lightning is doing, and also maybe a little bit of like the developers kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of all we got. Make the most of it.
We got 5 backup dancers. We can sync to all move at the same time, and then Lightning's gonna jump from platform to platform, saying like, "I will save the world from destruction." Platform moves. The world is in danger, but I will save it. Platform moves. And then in the end, she says, and if God, because she's like, I'm the real savior. If God betrays me, then I'm going to kill God. And then she stabs this gigantic God statue with her stupid sword. Which
better in Nier Automata.
Yeah. So you blow up the stage. No one dies. You then have to run through a dungeon to find Snow, and you fight
Which
him.
is just the dungeon from the beginning of the game. You recognize it pretty quickly, like, oh, I've been here before.
Yeah, it's narrow corridors, a lot of running around. They spawn a lot more enemies in this area, which is kind of annoying. And Snow, he's locked himself into a room. You have to get his pendant, or Sarah's pendant, and he will let down the like ice door that will block you when you have Sarah's pendant. Then you have a conversation with him. He is still a l'Cie, but like again. So he's still cursed with some sort of task, and he's going to become a Seath. He's going to become a zombie because that plot point from 13 that was all but abandoned in 13.2 is back, but only for Snow. Pretty much.
It's weird that they bring back the whole Seath thing, because I thought at the end of 13 we basically destroyed the entire system of being marked and having a mission by God. Like
There's one Fal'Cie left, and it's in Yuznan.
Yeah, it's running making all of the shit for everyone, basically.
Yeah. Anyways, so it's important to note that the way that this game handles its time system in relation to its bosses is kind of novel, and I'm going to say it again. It's interesting on paper.
Yes.
So, in the case of Snow, Null, Grendel, 3 out of the 4 major bosses, they will actually upgrade or be replaced with a harder version depending on which day it is. In the Wildlands, the final boss is Caius. He is the only boss in the game that does not upgrade, although he is the hardest boss in the entire game. The theory being that as you get closer and closer to the end, that becomes less of an issue. But in the case of Snow, he has 3 versions. So he has basic Snow, then Snow Plus starting on day 7, and then Snow Plus Plus on day 10. Null just has his default mode, and then an additional Null Christ Plus. I beat regular Null, and then Snow Plus. In the Dead Dunes, the Dead Dune boss starts out as a horrible abomination called Grendel. However, if you attempt to get to the final dungeon after or on day 7, it will become Parandus. And so I like the idea of there's a sense of urgency in you tackling these bosses. I think it would have been better if, like, what I think I'm getting at is there's kind of a correct order that the game doesn't really cue you into because of this system.
Yeah.
What would you say that order is?
I think they definitely want you to beat Null or Snow first, then the Dead Dunes, and do Caius last.
Okay.
Because
yeah.
considering that Caius is the harder boss at the start of the game but does not improve, I think the message is that Caius should be defeated or tackled last. However, the game is this open, unstructured world, so it doesn't really communicate that point very well.
Yeah, I agree. Because Caius, having played Caius, fought Caius without having finished the Dead Dunes quest, he definitely feels a cut above. Like, I was able to slop my way through everything leading up to Caius, but then once I got up to him, this game has precision blocking. It's got some like timing mechanics to it, and still they have put a lot of lipstick on the pig of Final Fantasy XIII systems, but it's still that same pig. You know, you still want to get the stun meter up and then do your business when the stun meter is full, and then, you know, heal up or do the debuffs, make sure that the debuffs are up, keep attacking for the hard bosses, for the hard enemies.
Yes. I think the only additional thing has to be, and we'll kind of talk about this, is that guard system, because that is different. Yes. And it's not necessarily a good addition.
Yeah. So like, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I feel like I've mentioned this before, but it is wild to me that like the stagger system is like a strange thing they added in 13, and it survived through all these games, and it made it into not really 15,
made it into
really
remake.
But yeah, 7 remake, there it is again, and like kind of demonstrates that it works. Like it's an okay idea, but I think the way that I like that implementation so much more. The thing that really gets me in this combat is, like, again, the importance of guarding can't really be understated, and we're probably just about to talk about that, but it's also a thing that you don't necessarily, like, it's not an inherent ability. You need to stack one of basically 4 kind of precious slots with a guard to guard. And you can build out these character classes, which are outfit based, such that you can kind of replicate to an extent the 13 class system, right? Where you could basically build yourself a sentinel whose only role is to, like, block and use metaguard or whatever and kind of heal up and absorb shit, and then come out with all of your, like, explosive stuff. But I guess just repeating stuff I said on the last episode, what I've kind of tried to do is set up every one of them so I've got a guard ability plus 3 other useful items, and that guard is generally mounted on the same button. The problem is, again, these outfits usually come with an ability pre-attached to it, and that ability is just kind of thrown onto whatever button they wanted. So if you want to have
still swap them, but it's kind of fiddly and annoying. You can swap the position they're in, but it's annoying.
I don't know. I kind of, it bums me out. I don't know. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. Every one of my outfits I've tried to have a block on it, as opposed to trying to just have like a set sentinel costume. We'll see if it catches up to me. And I guess the other quibble with that, I would say, is, like, as noted, the combat is not really why you're here. It's functional. It's fine, I guess, but I don't think anyone's raving about it. If you get interested in looking at this game after we literally tell you everything that happens in it, and you are not proud, don't just sweat this game on easy. Just do it. Like, there's literally no benefit. There's nothing. I'm telling you from experience. This game is not hard, and it's not even that tedious, but it's tedious enough that it's not worth your time. So just do it. Like, this is a fine one to do it. It's kind of insane that it's even there. Like considering the goals of this game, I don't think would necessarily be like a game. It was to tell a story, right?
And even that is a stretch in
some
ways.
Yeah, like, here we are debating the merits of said. But yeah,
I think it's worth saying, because of the perfect block system, if you block but you don't block at the right time, there's kind of 3 damage levels. There's no blocking, where you take full damage. There's blocking but you didn't perfect block, in which case you take severely reduced damage. It depends on how good the block you're doing is, what dress sphere, what outfit you're wearing. your stats, that sort of thing. And then there's perfect block, where even if you have a lesser sphere and a lesser block, you're probably taking almost no damage if you perfect block. So similar to Eternal Sonata, like ZP said, that game was a game where if you hit the timings right, you dealt full damage and you took almost no damage, because you would sometimes like counterattack, you would do perfect blocks, so you'd take less damage. But if you don't hit those timings, you're just kind of screwed. And the game can be balanced for hitting the perfect timings or not. Same thing with Legend of Dragoon, a game that people might have heard us talk about recently. These games have to be balanced either for you hitting those timings or not. This game is largely balanced for you not hitting the timings. It doesn't care that much. 95% of the time. But that 5% of the time where you're up against the really difficult enemies or the bosses, you have to be hitting those timings much more frequently, and it's just a bummer. It goes from a game where I can mash through and win a fight in 5 seconds to a game where I'm spending 40 minutes fighting the same enemy, and if I screw up any of my timings, because you only get 6 items and item slots, even if you go in with full resources, you don't have that many heals or abilities that you can actually throw at a boss. So you just need to execute well. That's it. It means that you can beat the game in like 2 hours, which I think is what the speedrun times are. But it also means if you don't have everything memorized, even if you're doing everything correctly, a fight could take a tedious, annoying amount of time. Yeah, so it's it's really a game that you want to play on easy mode. You don't necessarily want to... You want to be able to wear the outfits you want to wear because they're funny looking. You want to be able to play around with this game because that's the tone of it, right? Like, it's not a super serious game. It's a game of... It's like 13... It's like 10-2 in a lot of ways, It's a character that you remember being super serious, kind of having a fun, goofy spin-off story. Except it's a lot more God.
Yeah, like it's, the Shin Megami Tensei series, right? Like this game kind of rewards you, the quick shortcut, or a quick shortcut, is like, in addition to the perfect guard stuff, the sort of, what am I looking for, status effect stuff is pretty clutch. If you slap a bunch of status impediments on an enemy, especially in boss fights, like, that can be to your benefit, like to be dicking around with that. And, again, to do that, its ability slots got to take it up at the expense of other, an opportunity cost kind of problem, if you will, to like stack this all up in your favor. So like, Shin Megami Tensei is kind of premised around a lot of that. I think the difference is Shin Megami Tensei, you kind of go in being like, okay, like this combat is going to just beat me to death, and the tone of this is all kind of somber. So I'm kind of going in here with like a certain, the table's been set for a certain amount of like seriousness and engagement with this thing as an RPG. And this is a game where you've got, giant top hat man whose hat floats above his head talking to you about a 500-year-old child who has a letter from his father that you're doing in between missions around like a food critic named like Gordon Gourmet. Like it's just tonally weird. And then the combat goals feel like misaligned with that in a fun way. Fun being kind of maybe not a great choice of words.
In the eye of fun in the eye of the beholder, for sure.
Yeah, and then again, I'm the dumbass is too strong a word. For science, I bought all the fucking DLC for this game. Like, I've got all of it. So I've been just rolling through this game dressed up as Cloud and Yuna.
Version. If you want the DLC, it comes in the Game Pass version. You should probably play the Game Pass version of this.
The DLC is not a part of the Game Pass version.
Oh, okay. Well, it came with the retail
PC
release of the PC version, which is what I'm running.
That is probably a better deal, because the DLC... I mean, now that it's on Game Pass, it is discounted for Game Pass holders, so I got it like at a 20% discount or whatever, but it's still like $25.
I think I know what Jeff is going to say. I'm sorry I interrupted, but go ahead and say it. So I think that the biggest problem with the DLC outfits is the same thing that we had when we used the DLC, Jeff, in 13.2, which is the DLC is incredibly overpowered for the early to mid game, but there comes a point where it no longer scales well. As a result, for me personally, I just continued to use the summoner ability and just like Elementa, and then everything would die. And as a result, it's like the Drake Sword conundrum. I call this the Drake Sword conundrum from Dark Souls, where you used a funny little exploit to get a late game item for the early and mid game, and now because you've just been slashing about, killing everything with reckless abandon, you failed to learn the mechanics when there were guided levels that were supposed to teach you mechanics, and now you're going to pay for it.
Yeah. I'll fully cop to having, again, using Una and Elementa. Like, it's kind of a buzzsaw for the first like third to maybe even half of that game, and I'm trying to force myself off of it. But at the same time, it's like I don't fucking care about these goblins, man. I just don't.
Yeah.
So.
And for me, as someone who has a PS3 version, the servers that would sell me the DLC are down. So there's no ability for me to actually
not only
get
that
DLC.
Did you remember when this game launched? It actually had a hint mark system similar to Dark Souls.
Yeah, and it has like you can ask for help. It's like
you could have asked.
Thing.
Well, they even removed before they shit canned the servers. But yeah, you could have actually have said, "Hey, this boss needs ice. This boss is hard." You could like put all of that up, and then Square's like, "Ah, shit, we're putting so much money on server costs," and so they yanked that out like within months.
Why are we putting server costs into this game that largely underperformed? Yeah, so that definitely is something that we don't have any ability to comment on. It's been removed for a long time. So Snow, his whole section, like he talks about how he's trying to protect people. So he, is the proprietor of Yuznan because someone needs to be in charge of all the world's resources, and it might as well be him because he's so responsible and good. And he's depressed because he couldn't save Sarah, this person who in 13.2 you speak to for 5 minutes with fucking Snow, and he's just been beating himself up. Those two characters have talked about each other for at least 4 or 5 times as much time as they've ever spent on screen at the same time across 3 games. It's befuddling. Like, the storytelling in this series is some of the worst I've ever seen. But look, he talks about how much he misses his girlfriend, who he's barely ever seen on screen, and how he's been depressed about it for 500 years, and he wants Lightning to kill him because he couldn't save Sarah, even though no one really understands how Sarah died in this world. No one gets it. So you have to beat the crap out of Snow, and then you punch him a bunch, and he's like, "You're right, I'm not a Seath anymore. I'm a normal man." So it turns out every Seath you've ever fought, if someone just kicked the shit out of them and said, "Snap out of it," the horrible curse that is supposed to have all these stakes in Final Fantasy XIII can just be undone. Turns out.
Yeah.
This is a reference that'll be lost on you, Gino, but ZP, it will not. I forget what show, or if it was a Nitro or something, but it was like 95 WCW.
Okay.
And it was Hogan and Macho Man and probably someone else in like a multi-man tag against presumably the Dungeon of Doom. And Hogan gets, they put the heat on him, right? And he's down in the middle of the ring. And Macho Man has this epiphany. Because like Macho Man's like, "Oh, I can't win anything because it's a Hogan nightmare poo-poo situation."
He's like, right. It was the Giant plus the Dungeon of Doom, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage.
And Randy Savage remembers like, right, Hogan's basically immune to my offense. So he climbs up to the top rope and he drops a flying elbow on Hulk Hogan in the middle of the ring. And Hulk Hogan is dead at this point. And the elbow hits him and it revives him. He just wakes up and he's like, "I'm alive again. We're going to chase him off, brother." And then they beat the Giant and shit. It was that energy. That's what reminded me of immediately. It's like, or like the VGCW sequence when Mario fought Mr. L, and it was like, fond memories begin to flood back into Luigi, right? Like the only way you can communicate with Snow is with force, basically.
Because he's a
So
dummy.
as a result, I think this is why this battle works and the storytelling here works, because there comes a point where after the battle is done, Lightning just cold clocks him in the face, and that knocks the sense into him, and it's kind of perfect for his character in a cool moment.
Yes. Yeah, because he's a big idiot. Like he's a big idiot who only responds to violence.
It's the best callback. It's at this point, I think they've like officially given up on taking this shit seriously, despite what the rest of this game tries to do occasionally, because you can't have that and the very specific callback that it is to her, like literally punching this fucking dude for being like having a moan. Like you cannot do that and try to take this seriously anymore. And it was almost like, I don't know. I appreciated it a lot. Like, it was like, okay, I think we are on the same page here.
Yes, this is definitely the moment where Lightning Returns for me was like, oh, okay, you don't respect any of these characters either. Whereas, like, 13.2 still took itself pretty seriously as they were saying nonsense, just absolute nonsense. This game, I think it hates the same characters I hate, and that's fun. I like that the answer to Snow is punch him like a bunch of times, and he's like, okay, I guess I won't be a zombie anymore, and then never speak to that motherfucker again, right? Like, these characters show up, they barely speak, you kick the shit out of them to get their sense, they give you their soul, and then you're done with them, and they have nothing important to say from then on. Good. Great. Cool. Treat them with that amount of disregard. Perfect. So then we've both kind of, Jeff and I both have done a little bit of the Wildlands, a little bit of the Dead Dunes. In the Wildlands, you get a chocobo who's like the Endbringer chocobo.
Valhalla.
Yeah, the Angel of Valhalla. This chocobo is white, and it only responds to one person, and it turns out it's you, because Lightning's the chosen one. Which, there's so many situations in this game where people have been spending generations trying to solve a problem, and then Lightning shows up and solves it in 5 minutes because she's special chosen one, which is very funny. Like watching archaeologists who spent generations trying to open a door, and then Lightning shows up, taps it once, and it opens for her. But in the Wildlands, you get the chocobo. You have to heal the chocobo by feeding it food. Once it's healed enough, you can use it to get to this dungeon where Caius is from Final Fantasy, and Yule.
Just a few things. I feel like the Wildlands is a level that they think that giving you this chocobo is a usability benefit, a net positive, right?
Yes.
Oh man, the world of the Wildlands is so big that even with the chocobo, I felt like it was still too slow going from point A to point B.
Yeah, the chocobo is only as fast as you running. It's not fast. It's not even faster, and it doesn't turn off random battles. The chocobo will join you in battle when you get into fights, but in other FF games, the chocobo is.
And then on top of that, the chocobo needs to be healed beyond its initial kind of, it's good enough to fly, because the chocobo starts with just air attacks, and there are a lot of enemies in this game, right? Especially this environment where they absorb air, and that's super fucking annoying. And so you have to continue to heal this chocobo, and the different plants and the different tonic lady healers are not exactly clear, or it's not very easy to get all that stuff. And the one thing I will say is that the variety of this environment is quite interesting. I like the idea that, well, the Wildlands this is what academia from Final Fantasy XIII-2 used to be, except it's been leveled to the ground. That's all of the different buildings are the metropolis of academia, basically now destroyed and in ruins. And I like that as an idea, and you can kind of see some of the different parts of it. It's just too big. It's just really big.
Yeah, this is like the Calm Lands in 10. It's a big area meant to get around with a chocobo, but it's just really big, cumbersome to navigate, way too many random battles. It's also a lot like Grand Pulse in 13. It's big, empty, full of quests, pretty much.
Still plenty of goofiness if you decide to do the side quests in this game. You get to see the dog. That the dog that shall be unnamed, because it might be the worst looking 3D dog I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. And the quest here, so the sequence here in terms of a story, you spend a lot of time in that podunk farm healing a chocobo, and the connective tissue behind the chocobo and then it ending with Caius is a lot more it's shakier than the connective tissue, I would even say, of Luxurian and Yusnan. I would even say it's less coherent and logical than the Dead Dunes.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a chocobo. You're trying to get to this magical palace where apparently there's a lot of chaos.
There's
When you get
voices
there,
that speak to you, and that part I thought was cool. But to find out that the voices are
Yule and Caius because
Yule
they
and Caius is kind of an anti. It's nice to see them back, and
Is
I
it?
like the end. I think that the end note when you beat Caius, because you both haven't beaten them. I think the end note with Caius is actually really well done.
It's just kind of funny to me that they have maybe 10 to 20 high-res character models in this series, and so they had to use them, right? Like,
Well,
Caius
not
and
only
Yule are
that,
named
this
characters.
is something that I've been thinking about. Discounting the Omega versions of the random encounters. So you have Caius, you have Noel, you have Snow, you have Perandus or Grendel, and then the intro prologue boss dragon. So for 20 to 40 hours, you have 5 bosses. This is a franchise where the boss battles are sometimes the most iconic part, or like what people opt into. And this game's got 5 across the amount of time we would have at this point at least seen like an even in Final Fantasy XIII, there's an ungodly number of boss encounters that are just way over animated in kind of like these big decadent scenes. This game's got 5 until you get to the end.
Yeah,
5.
and I mean, to elaborate on that, the enemy variety itself is also staggeringly low. Like, you fight some palette swaps of the same enemy. Like, the Earth Eater and the Chocobo Eater are the same character model. There's, I think, a few different goblins and what are the little imp-looking things? They're weak
Those
to
are
ice.
the owl things. Yeah, those are gremlins.
Yeah, the little owl-looking things.
Those are
The
gremlins.
gremlins, yeah, the gremlins. Like, there's not a lot of enemy variety to begin with either. So it's really, you could tell that this game was made in a year with largely rehashing already existing assets. But yeah, when you get to Yule and you get to Caius, Yule basically tells you, I kept dying over and over and over again, and I wanted Caius to live. And then another Yule's like, I wish he had the release of dying. And so the generations of Yules are like half of them want Caius to live forever, and the other half want Caius to die so he can have peace. And the tension of this, a million Yules who all have the same backstory, but all are different souls technically. The contradictions of the Yules created the chaos that destroyed the world, because for some reason them having internal tension tore apart space-time. Like, none of it makes sense. It's all gibberish. You can say whatever you want, I guess. But try to explain the end of the world by just like Yule wasn't sure whether Caius should live or die. Boy, was that dumb. And at one point, Hope says, I think, light is necessary to give people hope. And the conversation is between a person named Hope and a character who is called Light. And it's just the worst. Just the fucking worst writing you've ever seen.
Yeah,
But
it
it's
feels like
funny.
right back to square one, like Final Fantasy XIII writing that. God, who the hell? The guy that made those videos about Tokimeki Memorial, whose name is now gone from my head, Tim Rogers. Tim Rogers basically posited that, like, and I think he's probably spot on about this, 13 feels at times just like they made environments and then they put people in them and then they backfilled plot, but they did that by just like, well, there's no real reason for anyone to be here, so everything everyone says has to be very like non-committal, vague, just like, oh, we've got to walk over here. I think you're an interesting person. I don't necessarily trust, like, just the most glib, pointless, empty, facile dialogue ever. And this feels just like jerking the wheel all the way right back to that.
Yes.
It's quite bad. This whole sequence, this dungeon specifically, is a very damning indictment of these games. Because, like,
Yeah, this is
like up to this point, I was honestly kind of like, this is not like tremendous, but this is okay. This is like even reminding me of Shenmue. Y'all go ahead and give me shit. But, like, it's like this is making me feel okay. And then this dungeon is just like, oh right. Like, it just reminded me of the worst dungeons in 13 too, and in some sense the worst dungeons in 13. Just an endless parade.
There's
of
a lot to
fractal-
unpack,
Ugh.
right? So first off, the dungeon by default whittles away your health.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
that sucks.
It
By the
saps
way,
your health. It saps your health. it is populated by enemies if you are not prepared for, can one-shot you. So I actually had the recurring problem of I could get to Caius, but by the point I got to Caius, I only had like 1 health potion and 1 Phoenix down. And like it's like I can't do this battle with these number of resources.
I avoided every battle in that place. I think
it's really hard
never
to
fought
do
an
that.
enemy.
It's really hard to do that because it's so many narrow corridor after narrow corridor.
I got
The
juice,
other
I
third
guess. I don't
problem
know.
is let's go ahead and talk about it, gentlemen. For whatever reason, to create a sense of variety, this has platforming sequences.
Yeah.
And there were times, especially where you get to the fucked up part where it's like the entire scaffoldings collapse. There were times where I would miss a jump and then I would fall down and then I would like either clip through or just fall to the first level of the... Oh, God.
Yeah.
And then even when you're
and they're
having like the
timed.
magical Yule steps, it's like this was not designed to be a platformer. This was not designed to be a Mario game. And say what you will about 13 having those weird little like blue circles that you would get on, then hit jump or hit a button, and then you would just watch this over animated pirouette jumping animation and get to the other side of a level. I would take that in a heartbeat to needing to manually jump through this environment.
Yeah.
And I would
Jump
say
Jeff Farmer that way through
I
this
agree
episode.
with everything that you guys are saying about this dungeon. However, I think that once you realize that the intent of the game is you're not supposed to do all of the environments all the way as you would in any other RPG, it's not necessarily acceptable game design. I see what they were going for. I see what they were going for in terms of, yeah, you know how you always want to do the dungeon in those Persona games all in one day so is that you can just social link. Yeah, you can't do that here. We're going to prevent you from doing that. Get fucked. And I see what they're doing here. But if there was a way for them to maybe structure this ever so differently or scale this ever so differently, it would have made everything so much better. And what I had to kind of wean myself off of was, okay, I've got this cachet of, I'm going to call them dress spheres because that's how I feel comfortable calling them.
Yep.
And I'm going to go into this dungeon. These are the ones I'm going to use because these are the ones that I enjoy. But you actually need to, every encounter, whether it's those red giant flans, the robot bugs, or the weird monkeys that are weak to air, you actually need to be responsive to the random encounters or whatever responds to you and kind of like completely swap things out battle to battle, which is because of the fiddly nature of the menu system, which I think we talked about in episode 1, is not fun to do. It's like, these red flans, I need to use ice on these, and then that's the best way to stagger them. These monkeys are weak to air, but they actually absorb ice or something like that, so I need to remove this, swap that out, put this here, put that there. Oh, now I've got those weird robot bugs. Okay, they're weak to lightning, but they absorb this. Like the process of being responsive to each battle to battle, it's not fun to interact with that fiddly menu system, even though that is a key part of how to play this game.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like what we were talking about with the paradigm system, right? Like, at the end of the day, this game makes the paradigm system look a little different, but it's still the paradigm system. The paradigm system was incredibly fiddly. It was all about, well, I need the right mix of paradigms, and if I don't have the right paradigm in here and I run into a battle that really requires XYZ combination of jobs, well, I guess I'm dead, or I guess this battle will take an hour because I don't have the proper mix of stuff. And in this game, it's somewhat worse because you can only have 3 jobs equipped at a time, and so I usually have one magic one, one physical one defensive one, and if your magic one doesn't have the right element equipped,
You're dead.
You're shut out of luck. Your magic attacks they heal the enemy instead of dealing it damage, so I guess you should have had wind instead of lightning, you idiot. Why would you walk around with this thing that, 9 times out of 10 works, and then in this area it just doesn't work at all?
Yeah, like the game tries to point your direction in its defense occasionally. Like before that snow fight, an item drops that's like damn near unavoidable. That's just like, hey, it like makes you less vulnerable to like ice shit. You're like, oh, okay, should probably like I should probably do something about this ice situation. Or this
this guy's name is Snow. And this game is the most obvious shit you've ever seen in your life. Of course, you will use ice attacks.
Yeah, and like game design wise, you can either do that in earnest and be like, here, like this will help you, just put this on, or you can do it as like a, hey, put this on and it's actually going to kill you. The let's call it the Shin Megami Tensei method, I guess. This is definitely earnest about it. So like take the hints where you find them, basically. If you're trying to go through this game doing everything anyway at this point, 10, 12 years after it came out, whatever the hell, you got a guide open. Like just it's okay.
I would even say, sorry, Jeff. This is where I started to get annoyed by the guard system because, one, unlike Eternal Sonata, there's no like audio or visual cue in terms of this is when you should hit the guard button to perfect guard, which that's one thing. It's around this point where I feel like there's so many particle effects, there's so much animation, there's so much shit on the screen when you're doing the most basic elemental attacks, to where if there's two enemies on the screen, the bane of my existence was when there were two of those giant red slimes, those flans, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could guard one, but by then there's so much shit I can't see what the second one is doing, and it's like, shit, I got stun locked and now I'm fucking dead. There's just so much real estate on your screen to where I got a headache just like, okay, this camera angle has been panned or shifted in a way that this is suboptimal. This sucks. What I'm looking at is barely usable. I can't even see what I'm doing anymore. Why did you move here?
Yeah, FF13 in a nutshell, all over again.
I know this is I promised I would not do this. Did I tell you guys how the PC keyboard, mouse and keyboard controls for this works?
You did.
No.
You did in the last show.
Oh, okay. Then you did.
Yeah. It's not. There's no mouse controls. You have to use WASD for moving the person, then IJKL to move the camera.
Damn. Okay. Well, that's
and the attack
garbage.
buttons are period, backspace, enter, and M.
I don't want to belabor this point, but do you enjoy using a gamepad, or is this just like they're not comfy? Like,
he's a sicko like this. He only does this with RPGs.
It's like
gamepad sometimes.
It controls like Earth Defense Force because it doesn't have mouse and keyboard. It's two sets of keys, and again, period, backspace,
Period,
enter, M.
That's terrible.
Those are the attack buttons.
Well, so I think
I have a thing where controllers. I think it's like advanced form of like weird RSI. I just don't like the way that controllers feel in my hands.
Fair enough. Just it's someone's bound to ask. So
as if this dungeon weren't hard enough, the actual Caius battle is a bunch of cheap ass bullshit.
He has a bunch of powerful attacks. If you don't perfect block them, they can wipe you out, even if you're at full HP.
He just starts the battle with Ultima. He just shoots his big fuck you laser beam, and if you don't get the timing on that, if you're fighting him like the second or third boss of the entire game, that's a GG.
It's kind of like Undertale. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
I will say it's a damn shame because, like I said, I find the conclusion with Caius and Yule to be really, really good stuff. And there's a plot twist even after Yule that made me cackling and howling in laughter. But yeah, you're not going to hear me. I know that I maybe am the most positive about this game. Like, you're not going to hear me apologize for this. The timing to perfect guard his stuff is super narrow.
And the animation does not give you a clear, like, at least with physical attacks, you can usually see when the attack's going to make contact with you.
Yeah.
A lot of his attacks are just particle effect animations. Just Giga Graviton is gravity things exploding above your head. They appear out of nowhere and hit you. His flare, like mega flare thing, he summons Bahamut and then Bahamut shoots at you. I still don't know what the perfect timing is.
That's on par with 13-2. He became Bahamut in 13-2. Remember? Probably one of the worst boss battles we've ever had in this podcast series, other than Barthantelis.
At the end of that game is... I mean, the thing about that... I feel like the 13.2 one is less egregious than Barthantalus, which, to be clear, I've only watched, I've not done. Because that 13.2 one, like, I definitely got stuck on it. And the solution was just go grab different monsters from the world, level them up ever so slightly by spending the money that you don't need and have a lot of. And then you can nuke them from orbit. It's not that bad. The Barthantalus one just seems like, yeah, just get ready. Like, you're going to be here for like 45 minutes. Like, there's no...
Especially the first Barthantalus boss on the spaceship.
Yeah, it's very bad. Ugh, God.
And I would say, at least in this game, because the way it is structured, the solution is you don't need to fight him now. Just go level up and come back and you can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, my critique was not that the Bahamut thing comes out of nowhere. It's that when he summons Bahamut, I don't know when to press the block button. Like, sure. Is it when Bahamut's charging up its blast? Is it when Bahamut shoots its blast? Is it when Bahamut's blast lands? Like, what is the actual timing for that? And his magic attacks, because he jumps between Commando mode and Ravager mode, calling back to the first two games. His Commando mode, his physical attacks, I know the timing of. I know the timing for, like, some of his blast attacks because it's pretty tight. Like, the name comes up and then you immediately have to press block. But his Ravager moves, a lot of them start with an animation, like a ball of light in the center of the screen starts going. And then there's an animation of like lightning or fire or wind or ice, whatever the element is. And then there's an explosion at the end. And I don't know whether to block when the light shows, when the animation plays, or when the explosion happens. Because sometimes I'm taking damage the whole time. Sometimes I'm taking damage just at the end. And, you know, it's annoying to have to redo this fight over and over and over again just to learn the block timings.
Yeah, I definitely had a hard time. My end-up solution was I went full ham with having a special guard. So I went with the Paladin, which has heavy guard level 3. And then I put like the Petra hood on top of her, which means your attacks do dog shit. Your magic does dog shit, but you now have magic and physical resistance plus 75%. And then I gave him the 10% magic resist. So 85% magical resistance, 75 physical. And basically that Paladin was just guarding. All of the buttons were guard. It had a tank-like amount of HP. So I just took it to a breaking point with that. Yeah, it's not a fun battle. You're not going to hear me apologize for it. But man, does it conclude really well. Oh, man. Oh, man.
But when you say really well, you mean dumbly. Right?
No, actually, I think that there's a sense of emotional resonance there that the goofiness comes with the reveal after you deal with Caius. Do you want me to? You guys are eventually going to see this, so I guess
we're going to see this. Let's just clear it because we can then talk about the Dead Dunes and the end of the game next time.
So what ends up happening is Caius says, "Oh, you want to save my soul? Well, guess what? I'm not going to give it to you because I don't have a soul. I've been dead for centuries. I'm a ghost. Fuck off.
What?
I'm the Grim Reaper." And he's like, "How did you forget this? I told you this in the last game." And basically, it's just Caius saying, "I'm not giving you shit, and I'm not going to stop being me, and there's nothing you can do to convince me." And he actually just basically pieces out, and you get absolutely nothing out of Caius. You don't get his soul. You don't get anything special there. But basically, Caius says, "Yeah, I'm going to continue helping the end of the world, because guess what?" And he kind of explains this. Do you know what happens when this 50-50 Yule thing happens? They all start fighting each other and they all die. This world sucks. Let's burn it to the fucking ground. I'm done with this shit. Bye. And there's just a sense of finality with Caius basically saying that, yeah, I'm done with this world. There's nothing to save. He basically calls you out and says that sense of finality and appealing to emotions you got out of Snow and Noel, you're not going to get it out of me. I'm exactly the same person I was when you met me last time, and there's nothing you can do to change me as a person. And I actually thought that was cool.
Yeah. A world that lets a young girl be born and die with the same soul every time because she could see the future. A world that would let that happen doesn't deserve to exist.
The better plot twist is, do you want me to just come out and say, because I guess we don't want to talk about this, but
no.
You find out that the Chocobo Valhalla is actually Odin reincarnated.
So your summon's reincarnated as a Chocobo?
Your summon has been reincarnated as a Chocobo, and he's been watching over your shoulder this entire time as a Chocobo.
I hate this game.
It's fucking great!
Game.
I mean, that's not even getting into La Chocolina fun.
Oh no!
Yep.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No, we still got that. But
Yeah,
Man.
and the fucking actual end of this game, which
sure.
I guess
But
I'm kind of
feel like-
surprised. Again, I know where this is going. I guess I'm kind of surprised that the end of the Kaya stuff, which to reiterate, I have not seen yet because I didn't finish that fucking fight, doesn't point in that direction more. Because like at a certain point, you start running out of runway to get to the thing, like the thing. So I guess on the other hand, though, them just doing what they do is maybe an even better choice. It's weird. I don't know. I feel like knowing where this is going is enhancing my experience of this game a little bit. I'm curious what Gino's going to think about it because you're going to
I
have
do
to...
not know where this is going.
I don't know
Yeah.
it either.
I simply refuse to tell you because I wish I could have the experience you're going to have when you see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will say, so I've met Saz, I've met Vanille,
Okay.
I've tried to do their quest a little bit. Saz barely talks to you because Saz is the fact that he's still just hung up on Dodge. His quest of like, my son is unconscious, please make my son normal again, has been 3 games. Like, none of these characters have resolutions to their basic plot lines 3 games in. Not a single one. They're all dealing with the same bullshit because this game had no story to tell. It has nothing interesting to say. And Dodge is unconscious again, and you have to get Dodge's soul fragments. And maybe this time, Saz will get to hang out with his kid. Maybe this time.
Maybe.
Maybe this time it'll be different. And Vanille is trying to hang out with Fang, and she can't because she hears the souls of the dead, and she needs Fang to
that
get...
that scene's for like, how you doing, Lightning? Oh, it's so good. Oh, let me show you that I hear the souls of the people who died before we all became immortal. Let me show you what this looks like. And it's like, oh God, Jesus, what?
Yeah. Lightning's like, so Vanille tells me that she hears the souls of everyone who's ever died. Okay. Cool, I guess. Sure. Yes. That's more interesting than what Vanille was before, so sure. Let's do that.
The Wikipedia version of these games, of the Fabula Nova Crystallis arc, well, I can't say it. I find it good, right? But that they take these characters that are, to be clear, the way they sketched out in Final Fantasy XIII, barely fucking characters, and continue to layer gobbledygook
Abilities
on them. They just all turn into basically, they're like the least interesting people in the universe in some sense. And by this point, they're all functionally demigods upon which like the fate of like all reality kind of hinges. I guess in a sense, that's very Final Fantasy. Like that you could kind of take that very, very broad concept and sketch it across like every single one of these games. But it's the sketches that they start with, and the pains they had to go to over 3 games and like millions of dollars and thousands of man hours to get to the point that they got to with them is really wild.
But it's amazing to me. They jump to them being demigods where if you don't save their souls, the world will end in a horrible calamity. And in many cases, they didn't even earn the transition to them being important.
They just inform you. Like it's like, yeah, you come back a couple years later. It's just like, you hear everyone who died, and now you're just going on and on about how God has charged you with saving the souls of the whole planet.
And we still haven't seen God. All we've seen is Yggdrasil, which is a giant flower.
Yeah, you're just, again, it's a tree inside of a robot with a boy who used to be a man that kind of remembers being a man in the past, what future past, I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It's really
None of it
good.
matters.
It's really dumb. And when it's really good when it's dumb, it's good.
Mystery Science Theater logic has to start applying, or else you really start to like your brain folds inside of itself, right? It starts to really hurt. I can't say I'm having a bad time up to frivolous, dumb, nonsense, laughable, like cheap looking game notwithstanding. Everything up to the point where that Caius dungeon happened to me, I was like kind of nodding along. That's the point where the game started to creep in a little too much for me, which is kind of a damning thing to say.
It's a shame.
Yeah. So again, just to underscore, like over and over again. Two things, I guess. One, maybe don't buy the DLC, and definitely play this on easy. You'll have a better time.
Yeah, but
so
it's
I think
dumb.
It is very dumb. This, I think, is a good time to kind of head towards wrapping. We had a question from chat. If this was the only Final Fantasy XIII game, would Final Fantasy XIII be a better franchise? If you jump straight to this game with no setup and you've never played any of the other ones, honestly, it would make exactly as much sense as it does right now. And it's a better playing game than any of the previous ones. I think this is better than 13.2.
I think you need 13.2.
You need 13.2 at the very least.
I
think you can skip 13 because thematically,
100%.
it just there's no connective tissue.
Yeah,
13.2.
13.2 Dinosaur 13. Basically, everything in 13.2 and 3 ignores that 13 ever existed and ignores who these characters were, except the one-line entry that you might read about these characters in like a glossary. Yeah. Like, you just need to know that Snow is Sarah's fiance. You need to know that Saz has a son named Daj, and you need to know that Vanille and Fang are gay for each other.
Yeah, I probably said this at some point, but I guess to reiterate this, I feel like the data log sort of in-game codex wiki thing is like overall bad, like just full stop. And what it did to, I think, 13 was particularly bad because it gave them the ability to just like, we don't have to write the game. They'll just be able to like read about it in between playing the game. Having said that, the data log thing that's in 13.2 has like a very good back of napkin version of the events of 13, which functionally is as good a way of experiencing 13 in universe as you really need. Right?
It's like the Kingdom Hearts collection summarizing the GBA games in a cutscene.
Yeah, like no human being that I care about. I'm being really mean about this, but like I just find them to be 13's just pretty bad. May not be the worst Final Fantasy game. Where there's a case it is, but like not essential. I definitely said this. Like they should have made a version of Final Fantasy 13.2 and just called it Final Fantasy 13. Functionally wind up starting and ending at the same places, right? Like in some ways it's actually a stronger, it is just a flatly stronger story. It sort of echoes the 10 pattern, right? Like, I don't know, a main character suddenly dying at the end of that game is kind of an audacious choice. It's certainly stronger feeling than, I mean, I guess characters die at the end of 13, but to get there is exhausting. It feels like shit.
Die? They're crystal pill, like,
yeah, like
the lore just doesn't allow anyone to die ever.
Yeah, like not well, you know, I mean, 10.2 went and fucked with that too, I suppose. But it's a case of like sunk cost fallacy, kind of rattling out in, you know, maybe a good way. They wrung every single drop of story they could out of the 13 universe at this point, and probably for the better. But yeah, I'm really prattling on, but definitely 13.
We've got comments from the Discord, so I'll just read them off. Braden, Arbitrary Water.
One thing to follow up on, Jeff. The 13 manages to invoke high stakes in every sentence that it tries to communicate. And when you actually play these games and experience these narratives, it, without fail, betrays that there is no stakes to anything. Yeah. Anything that the game says is important is undone in the next game or in the next cutscene. But in the moment, every one of these characters thinks that the world hangs on their every word. And it's an incredible testament to have a writing style that is so thoroughly undermined by everything you're doing in your game.
Yeah, like it's you know, you can think of it as like a very transactional way of like getting a story across. Like you can take me along for a certain amount of bullshit if you've like made enough deposits to draw on that, right? Like, and 13.2 just never really puts enough in the bank, or every time it does, as you said, it's just like immediately like overdraws the account or whatever. Pick your shitty metaphor.
Go ahead, ZP.
Okay, so Braden says Lightning Returns is good and you people are fucking babies. Thank you, Braden. Zeto says, aside from the mechanics, the other thing it does well is the melancholy of the end of the world alongside the goofiness of many of its parts.
Agreed.
I think the melancholy part of that, when people actually are trying to grapple with the fact that they've lived for 500 years, it starts to make sense that they are celebrating the end of the world. That part is actually good.
Yeah. And to go back to Braden, this game, it probably just winds up on the knife edge of good, in spite of everything.
Yeah, this is going to end up in the middle of this list.
Reki asking, how do I escape the soul prison Final Fantasy has placed me in? I have the pocket watch that came with the Lightning Returns special edition. Help.
They
It's
made
like,
a
Sorry, we can't help you. There's
they
no
made
help.
a special
You're with
edition,
us. You're in good company.
DualShock 3 for this game.
Yeah.
And I kind of regret not buying it when it was available. Because
Yeah,
it
but
looks
we
good.
have-
special edition PlayStation, right?
I wonder how much that Louis Vuitton shit is going for these days. Like, are people like, oh my god, it's got the fucking Lightning logo tramp stamp thing on it. It's oh god, I need it.
Mail it to WADA
Uh,
and get
And
it. It's
Mika
crazy.
Chop says, after 3 games now, do you get the appeal of Lightning or why she's so popular? Or is she more of a Poochie-like figure? Or is there something there?
I think that in this game in particular, this is the most personality she's had. I think that if you gave her an actual good plot, if we got this like deadpan, like I'm tired of everyone's bullshit version of Lightning, I think that could work in a story that was like even PS2 era Final Fantasy.
I mean, she's just Cloud, but I don't know, a girl.
Yeah.
She's Cloud, but a girl. Like they intentionally made Cloud, but a girl. Squall, but a girl.
I think I don't like going back to I guess what I just kind of said. Like 13 spends a lot of time telling you Cloud Lightning is cool, and I
Yes.
feel like Lightning Returns does a little more show that Lightning is cool. Like they actually spend enough time with this character to like have her, have sort of a consistent tone to what she's doing, as opposed to
Yeah.
vacillating between like a mercenary, aloof person to suddenly I really give a shit about hope, etc. I don't know. Like it is putting enough in that it starts to, when it withdraws on bullshit and my relationship with this game, it feels like there's something in there now. As opposed to in 13, it's like you have these little glimmers. Again, her punching Snow, a very good moment in a very bad game, and calling back to that tickled my heart a little bit. I was just like, I like Lightning. You know what? I think I like Lightning.
I think in this game, getting to dress her up so that she is basically your create a character in every cutscene is very funny. I think that her deadpan delivery in a world as ridiculous as it is by the end of 13.3 works way better than when they're trying to actually tell a linear narrative in 13, and she's barely in 13 too, so that barely counts. But I am also reminded of, I believe M said, Lightning's a very good character because I am a lesbian and she is hot and stoic.
Fair enough.
And therefore she's a very good character. And I think there's a certain amount of pretty lady with gruff demeanor that is just appealing on its face to certain folks just as an affect and as an aesthetic choice. And her barely being, I can't really describe what she cares about beyond her sister or what she wants or like what her goals are. I don't know her backstory, but gruff girl who's pretty, who you can dress up, who is gruff and has good one-liners every once in a while. Franchises have been built on less,
Yeah.
right?
It goes to the fucking red letter media, like, describe this character without telling me their job or what they look like. You could, if you really, really strained, you could just about do that with characters in 13, I guess. If you like really, really pushed, I feel like Lightning Returns gives you enough runway, at least with Lightning, if not everyone in the cast, they can just about get there now without really pushing yourself. But having said that, yeah, I'm sitting here trying to be like, oh yeah, I wonder, like, not that it's germane to the story, but in terms of like, who are her parents? Where did Lightning grow up? Like, there's probably a lore reason. There's probably a goddamn book or something. Don't particularly care, but
There is.
yeah, okay. It's
But,
interesting.
like, yeah.
She feels tabula rasa in a sense, even after the damn near 100 hours you spend with this character, right?
3 games. Like, she, beyond I wish my sister wasn't dead or I wish my sister wasn't Crystal,
Yeah.
I don't know why she does anything.
I think my brother-in-law is a vainglorious idiot, right? Like, that's what you get.
Yep, that's all you got for Lightning, and 3 games in, and it turns out that's all you needed. It's still popular anyway. So with that, I think we will say adieu to Lightning Returns once again. We will tune in one last time to discuss the end of the game and I guess Fang's storyline. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
Just germane to when this goes up, if you like hearing my voice, there's go talk to a doctor. And I'll be on about 3 upcoming episodes for Hardcore Gaming 101's top 47K games in sequence, I think, next week, which will be the week of, I guess, August 21st, talking about the Tower of Duraga, which is basically an RPG, Daytona USA, which is not an RPG, but is very, very, very good, and Top Players Golf, which is whatever the opposite of good is. Top Players Golf is that. So check that out.
Excellent.
It's a good show.
Check that out.
Maybe subscribe.
Where can people find that podcast?
You can just cruise over to hardcoregaming101.net, and it should be linked somewhere at the top of that page to subscribe to that podcast. It's up on basically every pod-catching app you can find. They also have a Patreon, which I won't promote here.
I'm just stuck here in this Deep Listens network. Gino says, let's play another Final Fantasy game. And it's like, I want to be free, though. He calls me a mascot, but I don't have rights.
And on that note, thank you, everyone listening. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And we'll be back in a bit to finish this game. Thank you. Till next time. Peace.